Welcome everyone to the first round of the Tepe Sigeman Co tournament here in Malmo, Sweden. We have Arjun Erigaisi on the screen as he takes on the world number one Magnus Carlsen. What a game this is going to be. And to see Magnus playing a classical tournament, it's been quite long. The last one he played was Norway Chess. So that's almost a year ago. And Arjun also took quite a bit of break. His last classical tournament was Wijk Aan Zee in Tata Steel Chess in Wijk Aan Zee, Netherlands. And now he's back fresh on the board. What a tournament we have on our hands. Magnus, Arjun, Noderbeck, Yazkan Erdogmus, Jordan Van Forest, Andy Woodward, Nils Grandelius and Zu Jinner. A fantastic event here. And we have someone coming in to make the first move. And Magnus has a smile on his face as e3 played. And then plays e4. Handshake there. And leaves. Magnus does not take the pawn back, which means that this is the move that he wants to play. Pawn to e4. He adjusts all his pieces and presses the clock. Let's go. What is Arjun's response going to be? Arjun plays pawn to e5. Okay, very solid. Knight to f3. The big question in this tournament, of course, is if Magnus will continue his dominance in classical chess. Ooh, we have the Petrov. Knight to f6. Now, the Petrov is considered to be a very dull and boring opening, but it's also become very interesting because white always tries new ways to hit against it, while black is well prepared. d6. So one idea is knight to c4. I mean, knight f3 is by far the main move. Knight d3 is also possible. He goes knight d3. Magnus plays his knight to d3. And guess what? Magnus had played this opening in his world championship match against Jan Nepomniachtchi. So he actually goes back into one of his old preps, knight e4, with the idea to pin the knight on the e file. Now queen e2 is played. And to break the pin, it's a must to play queen e7. So queen comes up. And now the point is to go knight to f4. Yes, threatening knight d5. So you need to stop it. c6 is one move. Knight f6 back is another. He goes back. And in his game against Jan Nepomniachtchi, he had played the move d4 here, Magnus. He plays knight c3. So slightly different move. Doesn't change the character of the position by a huge way, but interesting nonetheless. And now pawn to c6, just stopping the pieces from coming to d5. For me, Arjun's choice of opening is a bit dangerous. Now d4, one of the ideas is bishop e3 to prevent the queen trade and long castle. So Arjun says, let me quickly trade the queen. Takes. And now knight takes e2 is possible so that you can push the pawn to c3. But bishop e2 played. And bishop to f5, attacking the pawn on c2. We have bishop d3, offering a trade of bishops. So Magnus has taken a lot of time in the opening, while Arjun has moved pretty quickly. In effect, this to play the Petrov is a little bit weird choice by Arjun, I must say, because he is known for his aggressive, combative play, while Magnus is the one known for his endgame grinds. f3 is a nice move because you make square for your king. You also prepare g4 to expand on the king side. King d7, getting the king off the e file. Rook e8 check becomes an idea. And then g6, bishop g7. He goes king to f2. And now pawn to g6. The plan is to put the bishop here on the diagonal and try to put pressure on the d4 pawn. a4 played, gaining space on the queen side. And Arjun goes bishop to g7. The position is getting interesting. Knight c7 to d5 is one of the plans. Bishop d2. You have rook e8 coming in. So black's play doesn't look too tough. At the same time, g4 is on the card. So Arjun plays h5. He stops g4, which makes a lot of sense. And now knight to e2. Magnus just maneuvering his pieces, hoping that he can play c4, b4, gain space, and bishop at 6. A very small inaccuracy, I must say, by Arjun. This bishop was actually a nice piece. I think Arjun just didn't feel like keeping that bishop on the board after pawn to c3. So takes, rook takes. The rook is slightly misplaced, and white can already start expanding with b4 here. Pushes it. Magnus, will he grind this like he always does? Knight c7, calmly played here by Arjun. And now Magnus quickly pushes b5. If you take, I take, and if you take back, I play rook h b1. a6 is met with rook takes b5. The a8 rook is hanging. King c6 with d5. Knight d5 with c4. So all these calculations, Arjun says, I don't want to take the pawn at all. He comes back, rook h8. Very interesting. And now c4 played here by Magnus. Knight to e6. Eyeing the d4 square. All that Magnus needs is one inaccuracy by Arjun. Rook b1. Putting pressure on the b7 point. And now pawn to c5 played to gain space on the queen side. And we have pawn to d5. Grabbing space himself. Well, it was possible to take and play this position, which looked really promising for white, maybe slightly better as well. But with Magnus closing down the position and Arjun going to g7, it seems like black's chances of holding have improved. Especially because now to open up on the queen side is very tough. a6 is met with b6, b6 is met with a6. And on the king side, the knight is coming here to d4, to e3, all these squares. Rook e8 played by Arjun. I would say that Magnus in great shape would have not played this move d5. It just feels like he's a bit off form. Of course, it's bound to happen. You haven't played so much chess. Knight to c3. And now knight f5 to come in. This c4 pawn is a bit weak. So knight e3 becomes a threat to put pressure on c4. He plays rook e1 with the idea to trade, bring the other rook, then knight e4. He does play knight d4. And now pawn to h4. Equalizing the space on the king side. And knight to c2. Attacking the rook, forcing it to trade. Because if you play something like rook c1, the knight a3 wins material. So rook e8. Arjun takes back with the rook. And Magnus goes rook c1 to defend this. And now knight e3. Knight to e3. And now knight d1. Brings his knight back to d1. and knight to f5. So the knight now is attacking the h4 pawn. G3 has to be played. Pawn to g3. And the knight is very well placed on f5. Looking at all these key squares, Arjun simply moves his king to d8. Magnus has 17 minutes on the clock. You can see that he makes this move by taking 3 minutes. He goes knight to c3. And Arjun quickly goes knight e3, attacking this pawn. Now, Arjun's asking a question to Magnus. Do you want to draw? I'm happy with it. And Magnus takes 10 minutes now and goes knight d1, attacking the knight, defending the c4 pawn. The knight goes back and Magnus goes knight c3. So now it seems like it's clear it will be a draw. Goes knight e3, and this would be a threefold repetition if knight d1. But Magnus actually, I think, surprises one and all with the move. He's going towards the knight on d3, plays knight b2. He wants to fight on a bit. Arjun is like, I really don't care. I'm just going knight back and forth. Knight f5. He brings his knight back to f5. Knight d3. Now Magnus down to very few seconds on the clock, like down to a minute. Plays knight d3, and now this time Arjun looks at the score sheet and he's like, this will definitely be threefold. It won't be threefold repetition, but it will be like the same position arriving on the board 3 times. And he says like, I'm going to offer a draw. Magnus like, let's call the arbiter because 40 moves have not been done. There's a rule of 40 moves. It's 36th move. And yeah, the arbiter says he's going to go 93 and agrees to a draw. And Arjun Erigaisi scores a confident draw against Magnus in round 1 with the black pieces. I must say that that's actually quite a good result for Arjun. For Magnus, well, he just couldn't get things rolling. He did get a small edge out of the opening, and maybe there was this moment where instead of pushing pawn to d5, he could have taken the pawn here on c5. Uh, and this position should be looked at in more detail because the knight is looking at d5 e4, the rook is coming in with a check, and Arjun may have had to be very, very accurate here. So that was definitely a small miss for Magnus, but it didn't seem like much to him. And in this tournament, starting off solidly is important. Abdusattorov and Andy Woodward have won their games, which means that they are now on 1 point each, while Magnus, Arjun, Erdogmus, and Jordan are on half, and Zuziner and Nils Grandelius are on 0. And one thing that I really like about Arjun always, and this I've seen even when he played against Magnus in 2024, was how he always wants to understand, learn, extract maximum from Magnus. And I think that's the truth about all the players, like youngsters. They want to understand and learn from Magnus because these opportunities don't come often. And so you have some legit questions in your mind during the game. You're thinking, should I go here? Should I go this? Then you choose something, you play it. And after the game, you can actually compare your thinking with Magnus. And that's actually quite amazing. And you can see here, knight e3 is something that Magnus is talking about, like after knight b1. And he's just not liking his pawn structure, the way pieces are. And this is how the game has ended in a draw. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back with more on the Tepe Sigeman Co tournament.